Welcome to the Big Ideas series. Today we have with us Mr. Murugan Vasudevan, who is the CEO of the Veddis Foundation, which is a grant making and operating foundation investing at the intersection of policy, technology, and impact. Today he'll be talking to us about Back to the Future in Indian philanthropy. So, my first big question, because of the Big Idea series for you, would be why do philanthropy?
Thank you. I'm not a philanthropist, other than I'm not doing retail giving in my own way. But having spoken to quite a few uh, large donors, I think there is a variety of reasons why um, they start giving, and their journeys are not linear. They're very messy, um, and charts their own personal beliefs, biases, and so on. But largely, the reasons to give are um, either legacy, which is a word that you hear a lot, paying it forward, something you hear a lot, um, and also a genuine interest in, especially if you are a country based funder, philanthropist, you're deeply passionate about wanting to see your country do much better in the future than uh, what it has done so far. So I think these are broadly the reasons why what I've heard from philanthropists in terms of what makes them give. Yeah.
How do you feel about how philanthropy is done today, and how do you think this landscape should change? What is the opportunity for change?
No, something I think about a lot. Um, for the last 10 years, I've been thinking about it, both on the corporate side as well as on the individual side. I'm going to set aside the corporate part of it, um, maybe for another session or many more sessions, and the retail part of it as well, because those two are big chunks of philanthropic capital available in India today. But if I just have to focus on the large individual giving or foundations established by individual or a few individuals or family offices, and this sector alone, I think, is a tremendous opportunity to set a new chart for philanthropy in India without being burdened by what the American philanthropic institutions have done in the last 100 years. And we'll come back to the future, because there is a very nice thing we can wrap this up with. The individual giving in India is growing at maybe 20-25% a year, large giving, right? And unlike, let's say, the first generation of philanthropists in India, and unlike most large donors in the West, some of the new philanthropists, donors, are going to be beneficiaries of the venture capital way of thinking. And that essentially means you have been a recipient of someone who saw a PowerPoint slide, perhaps, or heard your story or your pitch, and trusted you with a large chunk of change to go solve a problem and build something. And I think that mindset, I honestly believe that is going to be the mindset of, hopefully, the mindset of the new crop of philanthropists coming in India over the next few years, is someone who will come in and challenge the notion of philanthropy is there to um, patch the holes downstream or issues downstream. Instead, question, how do we solve something? How do we build something? How do we make the system better? Because I think they have been the recipients of those questions by the venture capitalists, and that's enabled them to build something. And these are the questions I think they will ask, they should ask, which I think sets India up in a very unique position in the global philanthropic arc, to chart a new way for how philanthropy can be a part of nation building. Right.
So, one of the themes that we hear when we talk about nation building is state capacity issues, particularly when it comes to the Indian government. Many organizations are involved in the space to help this, to support the state in building state capacity. What is the role of philanthropy in building state capacity?
Yeah, no, if you just break it down, we have to agree that we have weak state capacity across both quality and quantity, right? So let's park quality side aside. It's a it's a complex conversation and not necessarily relevant. If you just look at quantity in terms of number of people in the government serving 1,000 residents in India or citizens in India, that number is 1/5 of the US, maybe 1/6 of China, and 1/10 of some of the Scandinavian countries. So, purely by virtue of the number of people required to deliver the commitments of the state to its citizens, we just don't have enough people. And I usually tell this story. It's just, I'm from the eastern suburb. I live in eastern suburb of Bangalore. It's one of the largest constituencies size wise. We don't have enough public health PHCs. And assume for a second that the nurse in my PHC is the world's best nurse. She has won this award, world's best nurse award. But she still has to service a constituency that is very large, right? And it's just impossible. So that's when people talk about state capacity, I give this example to say, look, this is the challenge of state capacity. I have the world's best nurse award. She's got this world's best nurse given by the United Nations, assume whatever. But she still can't do her job effectively because that is the crux of the state capacity from a quantity point of view. So there is an opportunity. So if you really want to deliver the commitments of the state, you need a better, improved state capacity. And I think that's where the role of philanthropy upstream really comes in. It could either be, it could take multiple forms. I give an example of some of the things we do. Um, it could be in the form of helping the state make better decisions, data-driven decisions. We do that with a couple of states. Embedding a few people, building the capability of the state, initially augmenting it, but over a period of 3 to 5 years, building that capability within the state to help to make better data-driven decisions, which we all do in our private lives. In our personal finance or corporate finance, we all make data-driven decisions, and the opportunity for the state to do that is huge. Who is going to help the state do that? That's a brilliant role for philanthropy. Another amazing role for philanthropy in state capacity is in policy formulation, right? I think that's fairly obvious. It is again unique opportunity in India. I don't think philanthropy in the West gets involved so much in policy formulation because the state has the capacity to do that, right? Here, I think there's a unique opportunity in India for philanthropy to help the state make better policy decisions, again, data-driven policy decisions. Then there is a policy implementation side of things, which is where philanthropy again has the opportunity to build an alliance of partners who can help in policy implementation, scaling with rigor, scaling with fidelity, and all of those. That's again an area for philanthropy to consider. And I hope more philanthropists look at these areas as real opportunities, in addition to serving the needs of the people at the very bottom of the spectrum. So it's usually an and. So when I talk about this, the common response is, but what about the people, the ultra poor? You have to do both for the ultra poor. I take the ultra poor as an example because we do both ends of that, right? There are about, based on the numbers, you believe 10 to 25 million ultra poor families in India. Again, there is no standard definition of ultra poor. It could be 80% of your daily income goes towards food. That's one definition. It could be $1 a day, whatever the definition you may have. Those philanthropy and the government has a responsibility to solve that problem on a day-to-day basis. How do you house them?
Survival needs.
Survival needs. That's required. But at the same time, you're not going to be able to solve that problem by catering only to the survival needs on a day-to-day basis. So what policies, what programs that you can implement at scale?
Systemic change.
Systemically. So one of the things, of course, is the graduation approach that BRAC pioneered, which is now Ministry of Rural Development is running it across 10 plus states. And that's running it at scale through a partnership of NGOs, not just one NGO, a group of NGOs, and someone at the ministry, in this case, it's Aspire of JPAL, kind of providing that fidelity to the research, underlying research. When you scale up, how do you make sure you stay in fidelity with the research that shows that this works? And so this is, again, in my view, a very unique role that Indian philanthropy can play, which is not a common role for philanthropy globally. So that's the other. Those are all the different ways in which philanthropy
can serve. So, who inspires your philosophy towards philanthropy? Are there leaders you look to? Are there inspirations that you have?
No, I am relatively new to the sector. I've been in philanthropy. I was unfortunately unaware. Usually, you say blissfully unaware, but unfortunately unaware, like most of us have been, about the opportunities to drive sustainable systemic change through philanthropy until 10 years ago. And I was a voracious consumer of the history of philanthropy, who's done what have been their approaches, their styles, their um, philosophy of giving. And surprisingly, my inspiration is actually not someone from our generation or even the previous generation or even the one before that. It is Jamsetji Tata, who about 120 years ago had this very powerful, brilliant quote, which today you can find on the Tata Trust's website as well. So I'm going to read it out for you if I can, which basically says, what advances a nation or a community is not so much to prop up its weakest. I'm going to skip some parts of the quote, but to lift up the best and the most gifted, so as to make them of the greatest service to the country. So for someone to make this comment 125 years ago, while being a colony, to have such far-sighted view in terms of what really drives sustainable growth. In a sense, what he's saying is support the best ideas. So you can say that, support systemic implementation of the best ideas in addition to clothing the poor and feeding the poor and so on. I think this is the unique opportunity. This is why I think, we have an opportunity to go back to the future in philanthropy in India and chart a new way forward and do things within philanthropy and the development sector in India, which perhaps would be a template for the rest of the world.
Okay. Thank you very much for speaking to us today about the role of philanthropy and the role that philanthropy can play in the change that we will see in India in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.